welcome back to the shop, and today we're going to start the dreaded task of undercoating removal. So let's get busy. In the last video we showed you us pressure washing, degreasing, scrubbing, pressure washing, and degreasing some more, and this is what we were left with. Some areas of the undercoating were coming off, flaking, disintegrated, and or still had tons of dirt embedded inside of it, so we set about having to fix this. And by fix it, it means I have the unfortunate task of removing the undercoating. Something that I don't wish on even my worst enemy. This job sucks, there's no way around it. It's terrible, it's not fun, it's time consuming, and it's messy. So, fortunately for you, what that means is I get to show you as many possible ways to remove the undercoating as I know how. There are two methods that we're not going to use in this video just because of time and costs. Time, these are really quick, costs a ton of money. Time being none of mine because I would hire somebody to do these two things. One being acid dipping. It's where you disassemble the entire car into pieces and you dip it in a hot vat of caustic acid and it strips everything. The downside of that is sometimes it doesn't strip the undercoating, which is the whole point of this video. The second one we're not going to do or demonstrate is any type of blasting. There are three major types of blasting, one being dry ice blasting. It's where you take super cool CO2 pellets, you put them through a machine, big high CFM air compressor, and you blast it at the surface. It cools it to the point to where it easily chips off through the impact of the dry ice pellet. The dry ice pellet goes straight from a solid and sublimates back to a gas, evaporates into the atmosphere, if you will, and you're left with nothing but the paint or the undercoating that you were attempting to remove anyway. It's really expensive, and there aren't many mobile blasters that come to you. There are, however, a lot of mobile blasters that will come do what they call dustless blasting or vapor blasting. Now, I have had some vehicles done like that in the past, but we're not going to do it on this project because most of you don't want to spend that kind of money anyway, so it always goes back down to the cost. You're cheap, just like me. The third one is traditional blasting using dry media. I would not recommend it. It uses a ton of media. Again, you have to rent a high CFM air compressor. We're talking 180 CFM. You could probably get by with 120 CFM, but then you have to deal with all the dust, both with dry blasting and dustless blasting. You have to deal with all of the leftover media in every nook and cranny you could possibly imagine inside the entire car. Dry ice blasting, you can spot blast and it works perfectly. However, both of those methods are really expensive. Acid dipping is going to run you about $2,500, and then you have to transport it to the actual stripper. Blasting, I think the cheapest I have ever had anything blasted where somebody came to me and they already had it disassembled and on a rotisserie for them to be able to rotate it around and access everything. I think I paid $12.50 for that. So most of you hear those numbers and you get scared. So being that cost is the main reason that we're not going to demonstrate any of the acid dipping and or any of the blasting techniques, because most of those run around $2,500 upwards to around $4,500 to have something completely stripped, and most of the time that's just more money than you're going to want to spend. So we're only going to be talking about the things that most people would have access to in their home shop for something that they were trying to do as a weekend project or gather their buddies around to have help, and that's going to be a combination of things. So the first one we're going to get busy with is the typical science project, and that is using dry ice pellets mixed with 90% isopropyl alcohol. It creates a little slurry. You mix all that stuff up, you put it on the surface that you're attempting to remove the undercoating from, and you give it a few little taps with a hammer or a air chisel on low power. Do not use 90 psi on that. Use about 30 or 40 psi, and then you can just chisel the stuff off, or you can use an oscillating tool, and it's supposed to just come off in big sheets. So we're going to give that a go and see how it works. So dry ice for sound deadening removal, big thumbs up. It works fantastic. It freezes it, it hardens it, and then you can just tap it off with a little hammer. It comes off in big, huge chunks. However, I bought the dry ice to remove the undercoating, and that's a big thumbs down. It does not work. Even though it does freeze it and get it really cold, it's still pliable. So even with the needle scaler, a hammer, all the other methods that I've seen online, it doesn't work for this particular undercoating. If cool doesn't work, we're gonna try to heat things up. You can use a heat gun, you can use a propane torch, a MAP gas torch, or butane. I would recommend against like cutting torches. That's a lot more heat than you want. Even the MAP gas is probably more heat than you would safely put into a panel without what they call oil canning it. So when you oil can something, it heats it up to the point where it stretches the metal and it never returns to its original shape. So if you are going to use the torch method, please be careful and don't destroy your project. The idea behind this is simple enough. You heat it up to the point to where it becomes gooey, and then you simply scrape it off. You're going to be left with a little bit of black smudgy residue. You can go through another heating cycle again and scrape even more of it off, or you can use some Goo Gone or Goof Off with a little bit of double-aught steel wool and or a 3M hand pad and get the remaining residue off with ease. So we're going to give that a go and see how that works. I have discovered some information, some key information. There are two types of undercoating. One is being an asphalt, tar, or rubberized base undercoating. The other one is whatever this stuff is. So we're having to endure different various methods with varying degrees of success. So the heat to remove the undercoating works very well. However, the residue still remains. So we're about to do a list of liquid chemicals and see if any of them attack what is remaining of the remnants of the gray undercoating material left over. Let's try Goo Gone. Nope. Let's try Goof Off. Nope. Let's try denatured alcohol. Nope. Let's try lacquer thinner. Nope. Let's try mineral spirits. Nope. Let's try wax and grease remover. Nope. Let's try some gas. Nope. Let's try some diesel. Nope. Let's try some acetone. It sort of works. The small spots it gets off great, little thin spots it gets off great, but working in large areas it evaporates too quickly for, in my opinion, to be an effective measure. Let's try some urethane reducer. Nope. Alright, well that's going to wrap up all of the liquid type adhesive removers, petroleum distillates, and or other chemicals that we're attempting to remove the burn remnants of the undercoating with. And none of them are particularly effective, so on to some more powerful stuff. Things that make you go, The next thing we're going to be using is something I vowed to never use again, and that is chemical aircraft stripper. The stuff sucks. It's an absolute bear to work with, and it makes a complete mess. So I'm doing this just for you because I know you want it in the list of things to check, and we're going to do it. So here we go. Alright, that sucks. Don't recommend it. I hate using that stuff. It's a bear to clean up. So we're going to move on to something that most of you would have in your shop, which is an angle grinder with a wire wheel. We also have one of these. We also have one of these. So this is an angle grinder with a knotted wire wheel on it. And then we have a knotted wire cup brush. And we also have a crimped wire cup brush as well. The only thing we don't have is a crimped wire wheel for the angle grinder. I couldn't find one in time for this video, so I'm sorry that one is missing. We're going to try all three of these. also did have laying around this is a buffer, so it does have a variable RPM. It does not turn at the amount of RPM that an angle grinder does, but this is a nylon cup brush. It's used in preparation for paint and gives roughly about 180 grit surface finish. We usually do this to give a little bit of mechanical adhesion before applying bed liners and or second coats of paint or things like that, just to clean up the metal a bit in hard to reach places. That nylon cup brush is absolutely ineffective in removing undercoating. It just makes a mess of things and just smears everything around. So don't recommend using one of those. I don't have any video footage of that, so I do apologize, but it was tested. So the typical things with the wire wheels you're gonna have to deal with is it can heat up and turn it into a smeary goop of asphalt tar kind of stuff. So that does suck. The other thing is you must wear eye protection. Those little metal strands do come flying off from time to time. So they'll impale you and it does hurt. It sucks. So you may want to wear coveralls and or some type of protective clothing for your chest, your belly, your gut, whatever. Now I do wear safety glasses and I wear the UVEX face shield. So I have 2 levels of protection to kind of hopefully prevent anything, not only the stuff I'm grinding off with the wire wheels, but the wires themselves from impaling me in my eye and causing me to go blind. So safety first. That method is out of the way. We're gonna go ahead and go on to our next method. This is an angle grinder with a strip-it disc. This is what the disc looks like when it's brand new. It's nice and square. It has some thickness to it, about 1/2 inch to 5/8 inch thick. You throw it on an angle grinder, and it is very effective at removing undercoating and paint all the way to fresh, clean, bare metal. It's probably the most effective method I've found for time and ease of removing this type of undercoating all the way to bare metal. If you're gonna get these strip-it discs, I highly recommend the Norton ones. There's a lot of other ones that are sold at retail box stores that have terrible reviews on them. They come apart very easy, and even this one, if you hit it on a hard edge, it's gonna basically disintegrate. So nice flat surfaces, It would work really well on door panels, hoods, roofs, things like that. But on the undercarriage, there's a lot of intricacies. So there's a lot of places we can't fit this. So we have to go to another method. Enter the needle scaler. This thing is freaking awesome. It can fit in places that you can't fit any kind of long reach angle grinder or die grinder with any kind of abrasive pad or scuff pad or anything like that on it. So this fits in very tight, intricate places. Highly recommended. I bought the small one, Harbor Freight. I think it was like 25 bucks. It works good, but it's very time consuming. So you don't want to go straight down on anything. It's not like a pneumatic hammer. It's basically an oscillating tool with a bunch of little pins on it. So you have to kind of use it as in a sweeping motion, and it's effective, but it takes a long time. But in areas that you can't fit anything else, what else are you gonna do? So with all the testing out of the way, which method would I recommend for the average person with average tools in their average home garage to strip their undercoating? I'd say it's going to be a combination. I don't think any one of these tools are going to give you the answer that you want for the quickest, easiest, most trouble-free way to get this stuff off your car. That being said, I have a unique undercoating on this thing. The typical average undercoating on an American muscle car, for instance, is going to be a asphalt tar or rubberized based undercoating. The stuff on this Datsun here is not. I think somewhere around 1977, Datsun got tired of everybody making fun of the poor man's Porsche and the fact that it was rusting on the boat before it ever came over to America to be distributed to the dealers. So with that in mind, I believe the engineers went back to the drawing board and they came up with a method. And their method was basically, as far as I can tell with what I'm removing on this one, spray the entire thing with seam sealer. make a sprayable seam sealer, spray it on, and then give it a black textured look on top of the seam sealer. And that's that gray little remnants that I'm finding everywhere. It's got a nice black texture where it's still in good condition, but as soon as you get through that layer, you get to this rubbery gray type sealant stuff. And I think that's been the cause of most of my headaches on this one. If you have an early Gen Z, most likely it's going to be the asphalt, rubber, or tar-based stuff. And if you do have one of those, it might be just as easy as some of these other YouTube videos make it out to be without going through all of this hassle. That's the best reason I can come up with for why this is so dang difficult. It's not, I knew it was going to be hard, but it's not supposed to be this hard. All the stuff online shows it much easier than this. So if you have a later model 280Z, you're probably going to run into this issue. A quick test is you can scrape away the textured side of things. If it's black all the way through to the paint, you're probably in good shape with using either the butane torch method, the propane torch method, the heat gun, or the dry ice method could probably work for you. If you're going to be stripping your undercoating with the angle grinder method, I highly recommend the proper safety gear, and that includes the Uvex Bionic face shield. Those things are about 30 bucks, well worth the investment. I still wear safety glasses underneath it, along with the Miller half face mask with side filters. They're not as bulky as a full respirator, and you can actually wear it underneath the face shield. These cars are old, so you might run into getting into lead-based paints. I don't know if this one has lead-based paint on it at all, but my lungs are important to me, and hopefully they're important to you. So wear the proper gear when you're doing this stuff. You don't want to be breathing in this undercoating dust or lead-based paint dust or anything like that. By far the best experience I had with stripping everything was the Norton Rapid Strip discs on an angle grinder. It got through the undercoating the best, and it got down to bare metal the cleanest. They work really well. They are kind of expensive. I highly recommend you not go to your local retail chain and get them. Go to a proper welding supply store and get the Norton brand. Or there's another company online that sells purple silica carbide ones that are supposedly fantastic. I didn't get a chance to get my hands on any, so I can't offer any personal standpoints on that. But the ones in the retail box stores have pretty bad reviews about disintegrating way before they should, or people not properly using them. Again, if you hit a hard edge with those, they're going to come apart. I don't care who makes it. So you have to be mindful of those surfaces. Get them on the flat panels, use them in big areas. They're going to work great. I went through about 3, maybe 4 discs on this whole underside. Now, I didn't do everything, so I would plan on about 4 or 5 of those things. It's going to set you back about 50 to 60 bucks. Hopefully you already have an angle grinder along with the proper protective gear to do all this. The second best method I found was the old-fashioned angle grinder with the wire wheel. It does suck. It does disintegrate the undercoating. It throws it everywhere. It turns it into little bitty crusties that get all over your shop. It's a pain to clean up. It's not fun, not pleasant, not a good experience, but nothing on removing undercoating is a good experience. Just get used to that fact of life if you choose to undertake this project in your own shop. I didn't really find any of these wire wheels to be more effective or less effective than another. Just different sizes and shapes to help you get into different areas was probably the biggest noticeable difference. It didn't matter whether it was crimped wire, a knotted wire wheel, a cut brush, or a wheel. They all had about the same performance. The needle scaler was perfect for getting into those hard to reach areas that you can't actually physically get an angle grinder with a grinding cut brush, wire wheel, or the strip it discs inside. The needle scaler takes a lot longer, but it's a fairly cheap tool. I think I picked that one up from Harbor Freight for about 25 bucks. It takes a lot of air consumption, so make sure you have a good air compressor that can keep up. So with that being said, that's going to bring this video to a close. If you like it, click the thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, please click that subscribe button along with the bell right next to the button. That way you get notified just as soon as we post another video. And as always, we appreciate you watching. And until next time, thanks for watching this video.